to order. Are there any members of the audience who wish to speak on a topic not on the agenda? Seeing none, I close public comment. Mr. Bossy, are you going to do the presentation?
Yes, sir, I am. Okay, thank you for having us here today. The item before you today is a proposed grant to the Housing Authority of the City of Santa Barbara for the purchase of property at 1020 Placido Avenue. And what I'm going to do is I'll give you a brief overview of some of the basics about the proposed grant, and then we also have representatives from CADA as well as the county and the Housing Authority who may wish to speak to the item as well as part of this presentation.
Great.
The Project Recovery Detox Center is currently located at Casa Esperanza, the homeless shelter down off of Lower Milpa Street on Cacique Street. And it provides a safe alcohol and drug-free environment for the treatment of substance abuse issues. It's a social program model that includes regular 12-step meetings, and participants participate in 2 early recovery groups and receive additional individual counseling and discharge planning.
Brian, could you explain what you mean by social program model?
I could, but I think it would be best if either CADA or Ms. Ann Dietrich refers to that. I'll let them use their expertise as far as that goes.
Fine.
But just wanted to explain kind of the basic overview of the Project Recovery Detox Center. The location at Casa Esperanza, it's been there for a number of years, and it has presented some management problems, both for the Project Recovery Detox Center as well as Casa Esperanza. For some time now, Casa Esperanza has wanted to put more tighter controls on people who are coming in and out of the shelter, and this is one way, by moving the Project Recovery Detox Center out of Casa Esperanza, that they would be able to do that and better control the comings and goings of folks and strengthen their program activities down at Casa Esperanza. Regarding the proposed purchase of property at 1020 Placido Avenue, this was one of the 12 strategies that was listed in the strategies to address community issues related to homelessness in the city of Santa Barbara, which was a document that many of you worked on and was adopted by the City Council on February 24th of 2009. Now, for a little bit over a year now, a group of folks have been looking for a new property for the Project Recovery Detox Center. They are now on a month-to-month lease at Casa Esperanza, and again, Casa Esperanza and CADA would like to move the facility to a better suited location. So for over a year now, there's been a group of folks, including Mayor Helene Schneider, as well as Councilmember Francisco, representatives from the 3rd District County Supervisor Doreen Farr's office, the Housing Authority, Casa Esperanza, as well as Santa Barbara County Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Services Department, as well as CADA, who have been looking for properties. We've gone through a number of properties. The requirements to house a facility like this are very stringent, and they require a number of particular issues that, especially regarding ADA access and things of that nature, that have been extremely hard to meet. But we do feel at this point in time that the location of 1020 Placido Avenue has presented the best opportunity to date. The property, we'll put it up on this, well, it is up on the screen here. It includes 1,952 square feet. It's 3 bedrooms, 4 baths, and it's on a 6,500 square foot lot. It's bordered by Bath Street, Carrillo Street on the bottom right there, you can see that, and then Figueroa Street on the top. It's a small avenue that comes off of Figueroa Street. And here's the front of that particular property. It's a very nice property, again, 3 bedrooms, 4 baths. The Housing Authority has negotiated a purchase price for the property of $865,000, which is directly in line with the appraisal that was completed for the property. And there was discussion on May 5th of 2010 at our budget hearing for Community Development and Redevelopment Agency regarding possible future opportunities for an acquisition of this particular type. At that point in time, rather than committing the money at that particular time, the agency board directed staff to go back and continue to pursue a property, and if and when one came about, bring that back to the agency board for consideration. And this is the first step of that process. The requested agency grant would be secured by a deed of trust recorded against the property. The housing authority would own the property and perform the property management activities. They would sublease the property to CADA, and they would perform their Project Recovery Detox Facility operations at the particular site. As far as public outreach goes, the Housing Authority and CADA held a neighborhood meeting on February 22nd, and it was very well attended. And I'm sure they'll mention the results of that particular meeting. And I know there are some folks here who attended that meeting as well. And that wraps up staff's presentation. I think at this time it might be good to have Mr. Wim Verkijk from CADA come and talk a little more about CADA's operations and the proposed site.
Good afternoon, City Council members. My name is Wim Verkijk, Director of Administration for the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse, and one of the programs that we run is Project Recovery Detox. And I've been asked to address some of the operational aspects of what we are planning for this particular location. But I'll first answer your question about what is the social model detox program. And there are really two kinds of detox programs. There's a medical detox, which is typically performed in a hospital setting with doctors attending with medication prescribed, etc. Social model is much more of a peer-driven program. There are no nurses, there are no doctors, but there is obviously collaboration with public health and other health agencies to make sure. And I'll address some of those points in here as well. The facility that we have in mind as a detox facility would be licensed, certified, and audited by the California Department of Alcohol and Drug Programs. It would be monitored by the Santa Barbara County of Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Services. So CADA would be accountable to both the state and the county for its program and any issues. And we would be accountable to the Housing Authority as our landlord. So if anybody had an issue or concern in the neighborhood, there would be avenues to address that. Very important to know that the clients in our program, and this would be a 12-bed facility, so you could have up to 12 clients. The clients would be supervised and monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That is part of the social structure to maintain sobriety in the program. The staff coverage is provided around the clock by 6 certified alcohol and drug counselors who are trained in CPR and first aid. During the day, there are 2 staff members. There is 1 staff member in the evening and 1 staff member during the night. And staff members are always awake. This is not a live-in assistant or manager. This is a person on duty, on call, monitoring. And that can go as far as monitoring the clients every 30 minutes when they are just admitted to make sure that they're healthy, that their breathing is good. Clients are medically cleared by their doctor, by a neighborhood clinic, or by a medical technician to make sure that they are suitable for this kind of a program. And they must also be negative for their TB test. This is not a drop-in center. It's not a halfway house. It's not a flop house. Clients are assessed prior to admission, either by phone or to a visit with them, and they are typically referred by police department, other social agencies, other collaborating agencies that we work with. So they are known entities. The clients are individually admitted and discharged at different times between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. So it's not like 12 people move out and 12 new people move in, causing all kind of havoc in the neighborhood. This is a continuous process. The clients are not allowed to leave the premises unless escorted by a staff member. Typically, they leave with one of our vans to go to other programs in the community. They go to Project Recovery for initial treatment preparation and discussions. They go to the Alano Club for a noontime meeting. Those are the only events that take place outside of the facility. Clients do not bring vehicles. Clients are not allowed to drive. Clients are not allowed to come to the program with a vehicle. So they come to us with other means. Clients do not have visitors. They do not entertain at the project. Clients can be discharged for not following rules, for being disrespectful. There's a number of issues. It's rather obvious, but I say again, alcohol and legal drugs are not allowed in the program. This is the essence of the program, and clients are subject to drug testing basically at any point in time. And just a few statistics, about 89% of the clients report to be from the Santa Barbara area, so this is a local program. Typical at any, although we have 12 beds, we typically see an occupancy around 9 or 10. You always have some beds available. People check in, check out earlier than anticipated, and you go around and make that bed available again. And a typical success completion rate is 73%. That's what we've seen over the past year. Any questions for me on the operations?
Questions from the committee members?
Yes.
Ms. Self.
When you were saying that your program, where it is now, that there have been troubles, what kind of troubles were being seen?
Yes, thank you. I'd be happy to address that question. The location at Casa Esperanza, we're in about a 1,200 square foot space, which is very tight for 12 patients, for 12 clients. There's no outdoor space. So once the client steps outside, the parking lot is there, and there's a lot of commotion in that area. There's a lot of clients from Casa Esperanza that they might have known in the previous time that they're again bumping into. There's communication. It's very difficult to monitor. There's really no place for them to be but inside, and that's very difficult to do in a 24/7 program. So those are the nature of our operational issues that we've had there.
And what was the consensus from those who attended the meeting, and how many people attended the neighborhood meeting?
I believe the estimate was about 30, between 25 and 30. The meeting lasted about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. There was a free exchange of ideas and thoughts. I would say the majority of the neighbors were in support. There were a number of questions asked that we answered. There are people here today, and I'm sure they can speak for themselves. There were a couple of neighbors that expressed concern, why it had to be their neighborhood, basically. My sense was that it was a very productive and positive meeting.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. White?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We will have time for public comment soon.
I'm curious about the regional context of this proposal and of course, the existing activities. What else do we have in the region? I hearken back to the Salvation Army facility that used to be in Carpinteria. Could you describe a little bit and a concern that I have is that the city of Santa Barbara ends up doing more than its fair share, and what are others doing as their share? So can you speak to any of that?
Sure. Yeah, there was a program in Carpinteria, as you know, the ARC program that went away. The Salvation Army discontinued that. There are currently no programs on the South Coast, no social model detox programs on the South Coast. The only real option is Cottage Hospital with an inpatient program. Like I said, 89% of the clients are from either Santa Barbara or Goleta, so it is really for locals. And there is nothing available between San Luis Obispo and Ventura. Ventura is currently entertaining a social model detox. We just saw a press release on that. But no, there's nothing else available. What we have done, there is a detox, I should say there's a detox model in Santa Maria, and we work with them in taking our female clients there at this time. So we have doubled the capacity of the operation at Casa Esperanza because of the logistics and the way the facility is configured. That now it's a 100% male facility. This new place would again allow us to take in female clients and keep them here in Santa Barbara.
Thank you. And there are no discussions underway in any other portions of the region to provide any such facility?
Other than this thing that I saw from Ventura County this week. But on the South Coast, no, there are none.
Okay, thank you.
And also ADMHS, Dr. Dietrich is here for the county, alcohol and drug, and she can also speak to that for other programs.
I have just one question for you. What would the process of discharging someone be? How would that work?
How does that work? The planning for discharging almost starts the moment the clients are entered into this 2-week, 14-day program. to find out what their situation is, what is their housing situation, do they have living quarters, etc. If not, we reach out to other community organizations and try to find places for them to move into. So this could be the Salvation Army, this could be the Rescue Mission, etc. Some clients have their own housing. They're being dropped off by their family members. But we do want to know, in order for them to have the highest possible success rate, we would like them to move back to a suitable housing situation.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Fred Clough points out that the clients are not just asked to leave. There's a plan. They are escorted. They're dropped off to where they need to go. It's not that 5 o'clock comes around and the door opens and these people are in the street.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, Mrs. Self?
Thank you. I have one more question. Wouldn't something like this, since it's servicing both Goleta and Santa Barbara, be better suited maybe out where the county offices are out there?
There are benefits to having it in town because of all the other social services that are available and that they attend and that they go to and that come to us to provide those services. That is the main reason why it always has been, and as to have it as part of this particular proposal, it had to be within a certain corridor, and I'm sure Brian can discuss that space where this had to be.
Well, we did invest in the St. Vincent's project, which I guess we annexed. Maybe we could annex a little bit of the county property, or MTD has land out there.
To answer your question about location, with the proposed use of RDA funds, first of all, redevelopment agency housing set-aside funds could not be used for something of this purpose. The reason being is that to be able to access those set-aside funds, it has to be a stay of longer than 30 days, seeing as though this is a 14-day program. It switched from looking at RDA housing set-aside funds over to RDA general funds, capital funds. And so with that, the idea was also to keep it within the RDA project area. And so that was also what happened to limit our search. Not only were the stringent requirements of having something like this licensed by the state and continue to have it licensed, but also this requirement of keeping it within the Central City redevelopment project area. So we really focused on keeping it within that project area. And then as Mr. Verkuyk also discussed, the plethora of social services available in the downtown that makes it easier for these people to get back on track, as opposed to having them back out at a county facility where the county offices are on Calle Real, and then having to bring them back and forth and back and forth. They're in a set environment here, and it's a whole lot easier for them to adapt and try to make themselves better.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Bossi, do we have other presenters before we open it to public comment?
I think we're okay. Ann, would you like to speak? Ann Dietrich from the county.
Thank you for your time and for considering this request. I'm Ann Dietrich, Director of Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Services. And on behalf of the county, our department's responsibility is to provide services and support to people with both mental health and substance abuse issues. And we do that on behalf of the county. We get money from the state and from the federal government. I think one thing that I would just like to emphasize is that substance use affects every community, every neighborhood, affects many families. There are national estimates that at any given time, 10 to 15% of adults in our country need some kind of substance abuse treatment. And so it's really a health care issue and a social issue because of the impact that can have on people in terms of their work life, their family life. And the good news is that we know that treatment works. So a program like this is one that's very welcome in our department. We have 14 beds that we support in North County for detox. We're very supportive of these 12 beds because it is for people who have made a decision, have made a choice that they want to stop using substances and they want to turn their life around. So people are resolved, and this provides the opportunity for individuals to come in with that resolve, making a choice to be recovered and to do better. So in that way, I think it's making a major contribution to not only individuals, but to their families and to neighborhoods. We provide around $230,000 a year for CADA to run this program. I think you know that CADA has a very long and honored reputation in our community for their work. And what's very positive is that they have an outpatient system that ties directly into this program. So they have a system of care, and they have, I think, excellent outcomes in terms of how people have done when they leave detox and have a real opportunity not to use again. So I'm very appreciative of the opportunity for this program to be funded, to be housed, and I appreciate your consideration. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Dietrich. So if there are no more staff presentations,
No more staff presentations.
very good. We'll now have time for public comment. If you would please step up to the microphone here and state your name.
You want us lined up over there?
However you want to do it. There aren't that many of us here.
Excuse me, I want you to show...
Ma'am, could you please come up to the microphone?
I'm short, maybe I can't read. I'm
We can
sorry,
adjust it.
being too short. But anyway, yeah.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Oh, my name is Terry, Terry. My last name is Uehara. I'm a professional artist. I'm on the way to famous artist. I will be treasure, Santa Barbara treasure, not brag. I am a real artist. Okay.
Thank you.
I have to move there to explain, okay? Excuse me, I have to explain. You know that house, right? Okay, that window, I live across the street where car is. My room is facing exactly the same level. I have no privacy whatsoever. I'm not an amateur. I'm a very powerful artist. I am. You people know later on, I was not bragging. I will be a treasure for Santa Barbara City.
Okay. And could you come back to the...
No, wait a minute. that house you're going to buy, okay? My studio is my bedroom. I'm using this studio, okay? Okay. If you get into that house, Mr. Right there, you can see I am painting. I have no privacy whatsoever. You can see the entire bedroom where I am painting. That's my studio, my life. And I'm not an amateur. I am one of those outstanding artists. I want powerful award after award. And I'm going to, serve the city. I am a giver. I'm not selfish because I'm a good Christian. I believe in helping people, but this is purely invasion of my privacy. How do you write your artist? You see this patient, they can take what I am doing. Okay. No, I'm really nervous. No, I am, because you see, I'm a disabled person. I became permanently disabled 12 years ago. I was a CNA nurse. Okay. Can you hear? So, I didn't know I had a talent in art, but see, I cannot do any work. I broke 2 parts of a spinal cord lifting a stroke patient. I was told permanently I'm disabled. Then I don't have money when I became disabled. Even I was making good money being a CNA nurse. My son, he had a horrible wife, and his wife was a troublemaker.
Ma'am, could you please
I
stick
have
to
to
the
say
topic?
this, why I don't have money, why I cannot move out, okay?
Sure.
I was making such good money. I'm a number one, anything I do. I'm believing, do your very best. Everything I do, I am that person, okay? My son came to me one day, and he checked how much money I was making. Mama, oh my God's sake, government is taking 40% of your income for Social Security. I'm in trouble. I got to raise 4 years, and that's 6 years, 2 boys. The wife is gone with
Ma'am.
that guy, all right?
Ma'am, could you please address the topic of the House? If you don't have anything more to say about that,
No,
we have
no,
another
I
speaker.
understand. No, why I bring up this? I have a point. If I had the money, I wouldn't complain. If you want to buy, I would get out. I don't have money. I live month to month. You understand?
I understand.
On this SCSR, what the hell you can do? See, art costs a lot of money. My art is not cheap. It's very, very high price. See? I will be
Okay.
national treasure one day. It's not bragging, okay? I'm not an ordinary artist. I am.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I cannot move out. So if that place would be the way you people want, I have no privacy. How can I do that? Then I have 2 windows, my room, where I live, okay? I have to have a natural right. I cannot just move because you people pay me money to move out. That's exactly what I want. This room I'm painting, I need natural light from 2 sides of the house, which I thought God gave me that room.
Okay.
Because I'm a good Christian. I believe in helping, giving people. I am a good human.
Okay.
I do believe in helping. I sympathize everything. All the drug addicts and all the, my heart goes out. I can cry for them. You know, but I have to stay at that house.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
That's all.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, my name is Jim Heaton, and I own a property in the neighborhood here, 309 West Figueroa, so just separated from this proposed project by an open backyard. I'm not opposed to this project in concept, but I do have some questions and concerns about whether it's the right location for the program, whether it's the right program for the need, and whether it's the best use of funds at this point. First, just my understanding is pretty limited on the models being used for treatment of these of this sort and for housing. But I thought my understanding has been that the housing first model is kind of what is the current thinking, and this seems to be sort of the older model of treating something before we deal with housing, and then the plan for action after the detox doesn't seem to be really addressing the need. If we're putting them back in the rescue mission or we're sending them back to, we don't know where. I understand some clients will have housing, but that's just one aspect of it that I'm curious if this is right. I'm also wondering if the regional concern that was brought up, I mean, is it, I understand that there isn't this isn't provided for in our region, but is this neighborhood the right place for it? We have some other facilities. We have Noah's Anchorage right there on the corner of Bath and Figueroa. We have some other housing projects, the SRO housing projects on Carrillo, and a number of others I haven't fully researched, but it's getting kind of dense in this neighborhood. I also had a question about the discharge, and I understand that they aren't just let go, but what about those unpleasant discharges where it's not working out? They mentioned that, maybe they're disrespectful, or just can't stay in the house. I mean, what do? Do they take them to another location and then let them out? Or, I mean, it seems like that could be a little bit complicated. As far as the zoning, I think that there's a number of things that probably need to be addressed with regard to parking. This is a single-family house currently that's being proposed to house up to 12 people, and that seems like definitely a change in use and change in intensity of use. And I think from the picture there's a garage. It doesn't look like it's conforming two-car garage even, so I'm not sure if there's an adequate amount of parking per code. I guess, and I don't know what the policy is on density, if there's a limit to the number of unrelated people in a single-family house, so that there might be something that needs to change. I know it's an R4 zone. This may be a permitted use, but there is a process for it. So I would wonder if this is the appropriate time to commit funds to it if we haven't explored the zoning and the implications in the process, to see if this is even going to be allowed in this location. And I do have, a little bit of a concern about equity. I am, recent owner of this property, and it was an illegal duplex. Spending a lot of money to take that out and make it back to a single-family residence because there wasn't adequate parking. There are duplexes there, but for lot size, we aren't even able to have a duplex there. Yet we're looking at a pretty significant intensity of use right next door. So I just recommend that that things are fully explored before we commit to doing this project. Again, I'm not opposed to it. I know that there may be a need, but I think there's some answered questions.
Okay. Sure. Mr. White.
Mr. Heaton, did I hear you say that you recently owned this property?
No, sorry.
I
recently purchased, my wife and I recently purchased the property just slightly over a year ago.
At 309
Yeah.
West Figueroa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name's Carolyn. I've lived across that alley for 14 years. I am a neighbor of Terry's. There are 32 units in our complex, and not everyone was notified about this meeting or the previous meeting. Neither were the neighbors whose house borders this garden area that at the previous meeting, where there were only 10 neighbors who showed up from our area. They're thinking this is going to be a great place for these people to hang out and such. And this new young family with a less than a 1-year-old, he's a business owner on State Street. They were not invited to this. 14 years I've seen this neighborhood become very unsafe. The cars in that alley named Placido have been vandalized, including mine. Tires. My insurance totaled out my car because of the vandalizing, the cutting of the convertible top, and panels of the vehicle. We have had the SWAT team to our building and the one on the other alley that crosses over there, which doesn't have a name. SWAT teams have been there over the years as a result of drug deals going down all the time. Unsavory neighbors, relatives of neighbors, becoming inhabitants of these buildings. I've seen it. I've experienced it. It's very scary. I'm frankly looking to move because it's not getting any better. With that teen thing on the corner, and neighbors that were at the previous meeting said that in the middle of the night they'd get a knock on their door. Can I stay here tonight? Because those kids didn't get the right address of the place, Noah's whatever. Then across the street from our building on Castillo, somebody decided to have homeless have assigned parking there each night. And we have had trespassing in our building over on Castillo, bordered by Placido. Trespassing in our laundry room, vandalizing. So now our laundry room is locked and we have only certain hours that we can actually use our laundry as a result of the impact in our neighborhood. Then comes along the, what is that called? The SRO, the people that just got from homeless to get a place over their head. That place came in the neighborhood, and this is all within the block. This is across the street from our block. I think it's a major high impact. I see the traffic of taking these people to meetings, having them checking in, checking out, all of this traffic on Placido, which is a relatively quiet area where some of the downtown neighbors or employees park their cars in the day so they don't have to pay for parking and then walk a couple blocks over to State Street to work. I feel like it is a very negative impact on our neighborhood. It's going to be even worse in our small little neighborhood as a result of policing, etc. And the police were pretty much in that neighborhood down there at Casa Esperanza. It's not really our fault as neighbors to provide these people that have to go out of Casa to a parking lot if they don't take them to a parking lot or to the beach, Cabrillo. I feel that this is a very negative impact on the neighborhood. With a 14-day treatment program, that's the worst 14 days of any addict or alcoholic's life to detox in that. And at the previous meeting, they said there was going to be no drugs in that home to assist these people in detoxing. So I just, I think it's the wrong location, the wrong use of the neighborhood, and I really like your idea, is it Ms. Self, of putting it out near the county. It's a little further to drive to an AA meeting. I mean, really, the Alano Club. We all drive in this area. It's not that far to drive from Carpinteria, where they already had something set up that could be maybe remodeled, expanded. The neighborhood there was already used to it. They're used to this in the county building area. We are not, and we've had enough in our neighborhood, frankly. And please look thoroughly in the zoning of all of this and, this unique program. I think it's the wrong location for it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Aurelio Bocanegra, and I'm one of those tenants who was not notified. I found by way of a neighbor.
Sorry about that.
Yesterday.
Is that
And
Boca
Bocanegra.
Negra?
Yes, sir. I agreed with a lot that has already been said to our first speaker. Those of you who don't know, she's won several awards in art here locally, and I applaud her and I support her in that area. Councilman Francisco, I don't know if you remember me, but when you ran for council, you shared a story, which I think there are parallels here, about how when you were a boy, your parents used to drop you off at the library, and you could spend the whole day there. And today, I assume that same feeling still exists, where you can't do that today because of everything that goes on in that facility. And I think that this area, the property that I live in, is all filled with seniors and disabled. And so if each of you were to ask a question like, would I send my elder relative to that property? Would I feel safe about it? For me, the answer is no, because of everything that's going on that's already been addressed. I made a copy of yesterday's front page of the news press, and it said basically that Casa Esperanza has asked CADA to find a new location. And then it goes on to say it is hoped that the move will alleviate some problems in the Milpas area neighborhood of Casa Esperanza that have concerned the public. So he had, the gentleman that spoke addressed maybe what goes on internally within that program of Casa Esperanza, that there would be this mix of the people who are detoxing and the other clients or participants. And so I assume that there would be on some level, some collusion that would not be recommended as healthy for the recovery process to stay on track. Here at this location, it's already been addressed. When I moved in, they told me, don't go into the alleyway at night. And this place, those of you who don't know the area, when the sun goes down, it's dark. Flat out, it's just dark. And I think a property or a program like this needs to be under the light because of all the potential problems that come with it. You know, you're taking somebody in who's really may be described as a tornado, leaving wreckage all over the place, and they're going to try to, in 14 days, stabilize them enough to be able to refer them to a long-term outpatient or residential type of program. And so,
Please, ma'am. Please.
and so, as much as I recognize the need for resources, somebody mentioned a little or talked a little bit about the clinical versus the social. And in a clinical model, if you're fortunate to have insurance, you may get coverage for 14 days, and then all of a sudden you're cured. You got to move on. And I think that there is a lack of resource in the community as a whole to be able to address the long-term needs of an individual who is looking for help. One other point, I know that there is a property across the street on Carrillo that is, I believe, managed by the Mental Health Department and the Housing Authority. And I know that there are, like, for example, there's a CVS store where they've shared stories of individuals that come from that property who have a history of either mental health and substance abuse, who go on there and buy a 12-pack, an 18-pack, and break it down and put it into these recyclable, reusable bags to disguise what they've got in them. They go right back in. And I'm saying, who's holding them accountable? And is this what the overall approach to recovery is? That kind of enabling where people are going to look the other way and let these people just do what the facility is not supposed to be letting them do? So I look at that and I say, well, okay, how is this property going to be different? I don't see it. I think that moving it to a different location, like out in the somewhere else in the county, might be a wiser choice, only because of the probability of more collusion within that area of people being in that facility who know people in that area who may want to try to sneak them in some drugs or whatever. And so I think it's a lose-lose situation. The concept, sounds great, but if you look at that area at night, if they, I don't walk out there at night. Okay. Because you've got the aggressive panhandling, you've got people. I've seen people laid out from a drunkenness just out in that alleyway, and now you're going to put this proposed program in there, and then run it under a social model program, which is run by peers, as opposed to having professionals on staff. And even though these people may be certified, there is a lack of resource.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bocanegra. Okay. It's to the council, to the committee.
Because I live right next to
Ma'am, you've already spoken. You've already spoken. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, are you open for public
Mr.
comment?
Bard, yes.
How long may I speak, sir?
Briefly.
Yes. Okay. I would just like to commend the effort to come together. In particular, Chairman Francisco, we welcome to hear you speak at the Unitarian Society, and you are known for balancing the issue, and I've noted that you've been attentive to all sides of the issue in recent weeks, and that's very much appreciated. And myself, I know that you listen, and I personally have been very harsh in my criticisms, but I'm expressing faith that the good management that the Housing Authority has shown on other properties will address the concerns of the people in the neighborhood. And the final emphasis I'd like to make is that if the people who are being housed are being supervised, then the neighborhoods will be protected. If they're not helped and they're not supervised and they're in the alleys drinking and shooting up, then we'll have much more problems and we won't know who to complain to. So I urge you to follow Mr. Pearson's staff and Rob Frederick's staff and the leadership that they've shown. These are very capable public officials, and they will be very responsive to their neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Comments from committee members?
Yes.
Mrs. Self.
I think CADA does a wonderful job with their programs, and I understand their plight. One of the things brought up here was devaluing neighborhood properties, and that has happened in areas where you get a preponderance of low-cost, affordable housing authority projects, it does lower your property values. And I still think looking for a location in the county area where maybe you would build affordable housing with this program built into it, but not to further impact this neighborhood. Before I could support this, I'm going to be personally knocking on doors because I know what it feels like to come in at the 9th hour and see that something is proposed that you weren't aware of. I think the excellent outreach that the Housing Authority is doing for the project on Upper State Street is yielding a good benefit of education to where people can buy into it. And again, my concern is such as brought up about all of these projects within this area and how it affects the neighborhood. We should all feel that we can walk into our alleys, be on our streets, and be safe. So I think even if we find properties where we can, again, I point to the county area, which is outside the RDA, but if it has a regular housing component to it, along with this program, that maybe something like that I would see as a better fit. And this is nothing against CADA. I think they do a wonderful and much needed job. But I think I'm not comfortable with imposing this on this neighborhood.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of questions first. Number one, what is the permit process for this facility?
With this particular operation, my understanding from planning staff is that it would require a PSP permit, which is a grade or two below a CUP, but it is also the Housing Authority's intention to make a visit to the Planning Commission.
Okay.
So in our search, in the search for property, things like parking were addressed, and we're confident that this particular site has the appropriate amount of parking. Again, as Mr. Verkuyk said, these folks will not have cars. The only cars that will be on site will be those of employees who are on their particular shift.
Okay.
So there is still a permitting process, a public process that will take place if moved forward.
Thank you. And then off of what Ms. Self was saying, the is this money usable outside of the city jurisdiction?
With the RDA, again, going back to some of my initial comments, this will not
Maybe
be...
ones that I missed because I was late?
No, actually, you were here.
All right.
This would be, the proposed use of funds are from RDA general funds,
Right.
not the housing set-aside funds. So with those RDA funds, it's very tricky to use them outside of the project area, and that's why we try to control this find space within the project area. Because once we get out of there, it is much more difficult, and there are legal requirements that have to be made. I believe one of the newer ones, as of January 1st, 2010, was that the property has to be adjacent to or connected to publicly owned land or a right-of-way. So I think once you start getting blocks and blocks out, it becomes more difficult and more difficult. Noting that everyone is struggling financially, this was the only source of funding that could be identified for this particular use.
I appreciate that. Okay. Well, in terms of comments, I definitely want to make sure that we're not doing another 2904. We've got to go in the direction of flushing every bird out of the bush on this front and making it so that there's everybody is duly noticed, and they may not be happy with it, et cetera, or that their unhappiness is noted, that we really get absolutely that. we've stuck our finger in that light socket, and we need not to do that again. So that's number one. Number two, my question early is consistent with a concern that I've had for years that the city of Santa Barbara is taking on more than our fair share of services and so forth. I am concerned that we do not hear that the city of Goleta, the city of Carpinteria, and that Nolita are not stepping up with complementary services, knowing that this is an integrated system. It's not one where we're going to have cloning homeless shelters in every jurisdiction and cloning facilities, but rather a complementarity of activities going on. So that's a basic theme that that concerns me going forward. I hear that we have no detox facility on the South Coast. That's not acceptable. I mean, we have the cottage, but I mean the medical model. That's not acceptable. In concept, I want to see, I could support this project. I do it in the context of that reluctance, and I do it in the context of the failure. We perhaps have not vetted this thing fully in the neighborhood. So I'm not saying this is not my end stop position here, but I see the need as desperate. I see definitely see the need of removing this from the Casa Esperanza area, and I also am confident that this facility can be complementary to the neighborhood, not be a disruption to the neighborhood. As with 2904, I want a tight loop of accountability so that year by whatever chunk of time, if things are not working, we know about it and we can make a change. That adaptive management is what we're going to be talking about again late this afternoon, and that's I place a lot of faith in that. So there's some conditionalities in my support, but I also see the need as desperate. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Bossi, was it the city or the housing authority that did the noticing for the public meeting?
Mr. Francisco, it was the Housing Authority. Maybe I can have Rob Pearson come up and talk a little bit about what they did actually do in their walks around the neighborhood.
Mr. Pearson.
Members of the City Council, Rob Pearson from the Housing Authority. We took the direction based on our experience with 2904 State Street, there we go, and we got labels from the city for those property owners within 300 feet of the property and did that noticing. And then I was out of town at the time, but Rob Fredericks can confirm for me that we actually walked the neighborhood and put flyers on all the doors within the 300 feet of the property. So,
Correction, we walked the neighborhood to get all of the addresses of residential units for unit numbers.
Okay.
And then we mailed those unit numbers, such as at Castile Home.
Yeah. Some of the residents that spoke today, I believe, live at the Community Housing Corporation's property that fronts Castillo Street, and we got all those individual names and numbers from the properties itself and then mailed. If I stand corrected on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I was not present at that meeting, and I don't know how many of the neighbors that you had there. It seems to me that there are some concerns in the neighborhood, and I think those concerns need to be addressed before this goes forward. I'm very supportive of the work that CADA does in our community, and I think they do a great job. And I agree with Mr. White that we need a detox facility on the South Coast, and this is probably the only way we'll get one. But at the same time, one of the things that I've talked about with regards to the general plan is that we need to make sure that these kinds of social service projects are not intensely concentrated in a single area. We need to make sure that they're distributed so that no one neighborhood is bearing an unfair burden. So I think personally, I believe what needs to happen is we need at least one more community meeting. I think we need, I believe we need a site visit by the City Council before I feel comfortable recommending this expenditure of funds to the full council. So I personally, that's what I believe needs to happen. Be happy to.
Is that so moved?
So, Mr. Chair, so that would be, how would that go forward then? Would be the full council, like as we do with an appeal? Would you imagine the full council would take the site visit, or what you're talking about, the committee would take a site visit and then we come back and talk about it some more?
I'd like to see two things happen. I believe that we need one more neighborhood meeting. I also think that it would be beneficial for the entire council to see this site, see this neighborhood, see it in person. And I think we need to do those two things before we can make an informed decision. That's my view. And that's, I would entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
If someone wants to make it.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? Mr. Pearson, did you have another comment?
I just wanted to put it in context in terms of our involvement with the project. They really came to us looking for our expertise on real estate.
Sure.
And one of the things we tried to do was limit the displacement of any existing tenants. And this is a property that is owner-occupied on the market. And that really drove our decision, both its location as well as the fact, after looking at several properties that were triplexes and fourplexes and duplexes, I'm not sure the community can afford to give up apartments for this kind of transition. I'd rather see a commercial property be used for it. But then when there's a lot of single-family homes currently on the market, and given the number of bedrooms and bathrooms and the fact that it's owner-occupied and there's no displacement was another reason that we went after it.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. And I appreciate the help that the Housing Authority has given to CADA in this.
Mr. Chair, I do have one question in that regard. I didn't hear a jump or witness a jump up that an escrow is going to fall through if this goes through, et cetera. So I just want to make sure the logistics of the transaction are not going to be that we're complementary to that.
Well, we've, as again, the owner is anxious to close escrow. We do have a commitment on getting our financing together by March 15th, and that's why we're scheduled to go to your council on the 15th and be able to close after that. The owner is already concerned about the amount of publicity. We've informed him that when you're dealing with a public agency, we have to be transparent, but they're upset that the price has already been disclosed and all of that, and I told them, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do about that, but I'm not sure they will hang in much beyond the 15th if we can't go forward. So.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion, we have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.